good, right?
Yeah.
But let's review. Photosynthesis can be pretty complicated. So remember, you do have a vocab quiz tomorrow and a test on Thursday covering cell respiration, which we talked about a week or so ago, and then photosynthesis, which we talked about recently. So let's tie these two together. I think you've seen this before, but if not, it doesn't matter. There's a connection between cell respiration and photosynthesis, a little one. The same substances are involved in each process. However, for example, photosynthesis will make sugars and oxygen. Cellular respiration will make those, but they'll use those to perform cell respiration, and they'll make different things. Anyway, so the whole goal of cell respiration, remember from about a week ago, a while back, was to generate this ATP. And they're also going to create some waste products. But those waste products are going to be used for the process of photosynthesis. And then the whole point of photosynthesis is to make sugars. So they have different goals, but they use the same substances. That's why they talk about them a lot, and they kind of, that's why they talk about these two processes at the same time. All right, I'm going back to this sheet. I like this sort of, kind of, but it looks a little too busy for me, so let's totally simplify this sheet real quick. There's a big point of this. The whole point of learning about photosynthesis and cell respiration is basically for this word right here, energy. They want you guys to understand, I want you guys to understand that there is definitely energy that flows through living organisms. How does it flow? Well, from photosynthesis and cell respiration for the most part. That's basically, those two processes are huge when it comes to energy flow. This overhead a little busy, but this is what this is kind of saying. The ultimate source, the primary source of energy in an ecosystem is the sun. And that sun is going to be used to power initially the process of photosynthesis. That's why you see that word first. And photosynthesis is going to change that energy from the sun, that solar energy, into a different form of energy, a chemical energy called sugar. Okay, so you're still talking energy. Even when I say sugar, it's still a form of energy. It's a form of chemical energy. So now, basically, that chemical energy is going to flow once again into other organisms, okay, in order to generate ATP. That process is called cellular respiration. Well, they're going to eat so that they can perform cellular respiration. I'm not a big fan of this sheet, but they're showing that the energy from the sugar, the plant, is going to then move over to the energy inside of an organism. That organism is going to be able to perform a process called cellular respiration because of that sugar to generate ATP. That's the form of energy that cells really want. Okay, you can't just use glucose by itself. Sugar can't be used by cells directly. They have to convert it into another form called ATP. Once you got ATP, you can power a cell. You're done. Okay, so I like this, I guess, for that sense. Okay, yesterday. Let's recap yesterday. Kind of shifting gears. Yesterday, basically, this is what we talked about. It's really important to kind of understand this picture. The stages of photosynthesis, there's two of them. There are the light-dependent reactions that depend on the light, hence why you see light here. Those happen first. And the light-independent reactions. They don't care if there's light there or not. Two very different things happen in these reactions that I want you to know about. In the light-dependent reactions, the ones that need light, you are basically going to generate these two things right here, ATP and NADPH. What are those things? They are very high energy molecules. They're like a charged battery ready to work. Okay, ATP and NADPH, that's the whole point of these light-dependent reactions. What also happens in the light-dependent reactions you see here is you need water to kickstart the whole process. This is why photosynthesis, you're using water. Okay. We're not going to go into the details of what happens to that water, but trust me when I say water's needed as like the initial source. Then, after water does its thing, kind of the byproduct of that water being kind of split apart is going to be oxygen. So this is where the oxygen comes from. You know, guys all know that plants are capable of producing oxygen. Well, this is basically where it comes from. The first step of photosynthesis. It's like a waste product. But really the first stage of photosynthesis, the main goal is to make ATP and NADPH. Because what's going to happen is that second stage of photosynthesis is going to take that ATP that you just made, and it's going to take that NADPH that you just made, and it's going to power the reaction where carbon dioxide is going to enter. Carbon dioxide is going to get transformed. It's going to get changed with the help of those high energy molecules, and out is going to pop out your main product, sugars. That's the whole goal of photosynthesis, make sugar. Okay, these two reactions take place in different parts of the chloroplast. This is a chloroplast, though. This big green thing on the outside, that's a chloroplast. But the first stage reactions happen in the thylakoids. The second phase of the reaction occurs in the stroma. But both of them are inside of a chloroplast. The other thing I guess we talked about are these pigments. Okay, remember these pigments we talked about. Those photosynthetic pigments like chlorophyll, those are located inside the thylakoids, and those are going to help the process to make this ATP and NADPH. That's why they're there. And then we talked about the fact that those pigments will absorb light energy, but not all light energy. They don't like all the light energy. They could care less about the green light energy. That's why they reflect it. That's why chlorophyll looks green and plants look green. But they do like the blue, they do like the orange, they do like the violet light energy, and that's the light energy that they use, those pigments. So, all right, that's kind of what we did yesterday. That's a review of yesterday. The only thing I want to talk about today, I'm done with the details of the process, but I think it's important for you guys to understand that photosynthesis doesn't occur at this steady rate all the time. There's going to be times when photosynthesis is really fast. There's going to be times when photosynthesis is really slow. And a lot of times those things are determined by external factors. Okay. What do you think an external factor might be? What do you think would affect the rate at which photosynthesis would take place? Think common sense, actually. I heard it. Light, absolutely. If there's no light, it's not going to happen. What else? What else doesn't work right if it's not the right?
Weather conditions.
Temperature. Very much. Very much. If the temperature is not just right, photosynthesis won't occur. Very good. That's the kind of thing. So that's the kind of things I want to talk about now, but I'm going to put a little twist in it. I want you to be able to interpret a graph, a line graph, if given it. Okay, so factors affecting photosynthesis. Number one, temperature, most definitely. Can't be too hot, can't be too cold, and that's exactly what this graph tells you. You have the rate of photosynthesis along the y-axis. You have the temperature. It's in degrees Celsius. Remember, we're not used to degrees Celsius in our world. We're normally in Fahrenheit. That's why the numbers don't look right, but they aren't. Okay. So here's what this line is telling me. This curve right here tells me some very important information. It's telling me that, okay, at really low temperatures, the rate of photosynthesis isn't so great. If I start warming things up to 10 degrees, 11 degrees, 12 degrees, 13 degrees, 14 degrees, you get the idea. The rate of photosynthesis is so much better. The line's getting higher. However, gets too warm, nah, it's not going to work. It's going to kind of go downhill. If it gets really hot, photosynthesis is going to stop altogether. My question to you guys, see if you can get this one. It's a tough question. Why in the world would photosynthesis stop if it got too hot? What do you think that it is inside of a plant? or anything, or yeah, inside of a plant that's really picky about the temperature conditions that won't work right, won't make photosynthesis go if the temperature isn't just right. Starts with an E. What are the name of the substances that make reactions go? Enzymes. Beautiful. Very good. Fist here. Yes. That's good. Absolutely, guys. You got to keep in mind the big picture here. Photosynthesis is basically a bunch of chemical reactions taking place with many, 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 many steps. Each of those steps is going to require a different enzyme. We've talked about enzymes here. You know, living organisms, I don't care what you are filled with enzymes. Enzymes make reactions go. Well, if those enzymes are not happy, they won't work. If you start dealing with high temperatures, enzymes, remember, enzymes are like big 3D blobs of protein. And if the temperatures start getting too high, those big blobs of protein are going to unfold and unravel and just blah. If they lose that nice 3D shape that they're meant to have, they won't work anymore. Remember that movie we saw? You had these proteins that had to be a certain shape in order to work. That's what enzymes are. They've got to be a certain shape to work. They won't be if the temperatures get too hot. They will literally blob out. So very good. I love it. All right. Even late in the day, Zane with with the hard question of the day. Okay, the graph for light looks a little different, but light's definitely a factor. You obviously need light for photosynthesis, but it's a little different. Rate of photosynthesis along the y-axis, light intensity along the x-axis. That basically means as you go from left to right here along the line, the light keeps getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. So maybe you have like a super dim light conditions here, but they're going to get brighter and brighter and brighter. So it makes sense. If you have more light, more light, more light, the rate of photosynthesis is going to keep getting faster and faster and faster. However, basically what this graph is telling you, it plateaus. In other words, it's not going to get to a point where too much light is going to make photosynthesis go, like decrease the rate of photosynthesis. But it's going to plateau. It won't get any faster either. So when the line is kind of like this, you have the same rate of photosynthesis. Even if you keep intensifying the light, you have the same rate of photosynthesis going on. That's fine. Not good or not bad. Just there. But it sure is different from temperature. Okay, water is another, I don't have a graph for water, but it is a factor in photosynthesis. But obviously, if you don't have water, which is pretty much needed right from the get-go in photosynthesis, if you don't have water, you're not going to go. And number 4 is CO2. Remember, CO2 is that other important ingredient needed to start photosynthesis. Now, you didn't see it enter until the second stage, but CO2. Now, the graph for that looks an awful lot like the graph for light. So let's say you had a plant, and you put that plant in a room. And you started, and it was a sealed room, and you started upping the CO2 levels, pumping in a little more and a little more. Photosynthesis would start increasing. However, it's going to get to the point where it doesn't matter how much you pump in there, how much CO2, photosynthesis is going to reach like a maximum rate, regardless of how much more CO2 you add. And that's what that graph is telling you. It's going to reach a rate and stay at that high rate for a while. So it's good to know. Photosynthesis kind of varies in its rate. It really depends a lot on external factors like sunlight, like temperature, like water, whether water's there or whether CO2's there. So that's kind of what the gist of this is. Questions, people? I think that wraps up the information for this chapter, and last chapter for that matter. Chapter 8 and 9 are done for you guys. Remember, vocab quiz tomorrow, and for the remainder of today, we are going to work on a simple worksheet.